I'll link this below, but this is one of the tweet threads or reactions to what Perch was putting up. The thing is, the reason why manga and a lot of the more visual mediums of Japan are still thriving and healthy is because they're not actively beating it into submission. They're just letting people draw and make stuff and whatever stories they want without having to worry about catering to some non-existent audience that will not buy your shit anyways. Um, Here in the U.S., most of our mediums don't cater to whatever audiences they say they're catering to. They just deconstruct it, shit on it, and then they move on to another IP, deconstruct it, shit on it, then they move on to another IP. Are you seeing a pattern here? For westernized comics, it doesn't even matter if it's cape shit or not. They have fucked it over into the ground, and it's reflective in the fact that even 10 years ago there's probably a lot more comic book shops than there are now. Nowadays, like even just seeing for me locally, they've closed down 3 independent game sellers. The handful of comic book shops that are still within a 45 to hour radius of me have turned into more of hobby shops than just pure comics. They have to sell miniatures, they have to sell manga, they have to sell videos, they have to sell Funko Pop, they have to sell time for tabletop. They've even become more obscure collecting things like the records. They'll have Betamax stuff in there. Some of them also ended up putting in old DVDs like of harder to find VHS tapes, all that sort of stuff. They've become a big revolving like kind of collector niche hobby shop. They've had to. They can't be pure comic book sellers anymore. And even in the heyday of comic book land, what we sold like the big hitters maybe sold 1 million copies or something. That's chump change in Japan. Like most of these mangas are just they just sell just like regular newsstand stuff in America's heyday. It, even though we've gone more digital in some aspects, our entertainment industry is basically taking a shotgun, pointing it at its freaking nether regions, and then firing away. It's basically bleeding out. And people can try to change my mind on it, but I just see the results even just in my local area of Florida. Um, the one purely miniature shop, the Warhammer 40K shop that's over by the Target near me, is the only thing that's really surviving just purely as a 40K thing. Like it doesn't have anything else but 40K stuff in there. Um, that's one of the few that I can think of. Everybody else has had to become like a hybrid something or other to survive. And I know Perch is saying it's like comparing apples to tires, but to me, it's not much of a difference. You see one country supporting and actually growing their medium even to the point out of being well outside their country versus the comic book medium in the US is shrinking. Like in terms of even from corporate angles, it's contracting to the point where it's like, why are you even doing this anymore? You've forgotten the aspirational, you've forgotten everything else. Now all it is down the dumps nihilistic piece of shit like YA characters that sit around a table and talk. It's not fun. It isn't. And you'll find that some of the comics and some of the manga that I'm going to cover on the channel, they're growing fairly well in comparison to the rest of the industry. At least they're self propelling, and they're actually making a bit of a profit. Because sometimes, in order to introduce new characters or introduce a new setting, you're gonna need you know a couple of volumes worth of stuff to really start building it up. Um, and not all independents, even on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, end up getting to that point. But Common America is growing. So's Black Hops. People are finally jumping on that, but it took a couple of volumes. Um, whenever more of that stuff pops up, I'm gonna support it because they automatically give me my digital option. And for me right now, digital is king because I can move it onto different flash drives. I can move it onto my tablet if I need it. I don't have as much physical space to spare. Like, I guess one of these days I'll even take a picture of my shelves that I have in my closet and also my by my bed. It's already filled with stuff. It's filled. Like, I understand physical mediums are important because then they can't be like altered or changed and you just have it as is. But I find digital is just as useful for certain other things. It's just a way of like even the Blockbuster near here, the way it died compared to Redbox. It might be apples and oranges to some people, but it's rather telling that one is still growing and people will buy tons of it versus, well, it's the whole entire thing is shrinking and contracting, and new readers are not picking up comic books per se. They might pick up some stuff, but that's like, the common Americas of the world where they'll hear about it through word of mouth and be like, "Oh, why is everybody interested in it?" It's just out of this world. It really is, people. And even with what DC might be doing with Vertigo, it looks like some of their stuff they're trying to re-release it into bigger collections. But again, I'm gonna starve DC. I'll buy the omnibuses from the trade website here that let me bring it up. But in stock trades, I'll just buy stuff off of them. Like once the stuff is out for a while, and then boom, I'll pick that up. But I don't consider Vertigo part of DC because DC just let Vertigo die. So it's like, here you go, okay. Because even now, like they don't really they don't like the fact that their backlog will probably sell better than any of the current tripe from the past 10 years. It's just the way it is. I pretty much gave up on most comics during my second year of college. Then I got back into it a little bit when they brought in Rebirth because they were starting to bring back the characters as I knew them. More hopeful, aspirational, but with a little bit of a new bent. Again, we'll just have to wait and see in the next couple of years, see what happens. But I have a feeling that a whole lot of IPs will be completely unrecognizable within the next couple of years, even more so than now. See you later, everybody.